Here. Today we're going to be doing Unit 5 Notes 2. So for Unit 5 Notes 2, we're actually going to start about graphing quadratics. So we're going to take what we did on the previous note sheet and use it to graph quadratics. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at that. So let's review what we did on the previous note sheet. So for this one, what we did is we wanted to calculate out first our A, our B, and our C value. Well, our A is always with the X term, so that's going to be a -1. Our B is always with the X term, so that's 6, and our C is our constant, which is 4. Since our A is negative, we know that it's going to open down. Okay, so now we want to calculate out our axis of symmetry, and we do that by doing x is equal to opposite of b over 2a. So we're going to do opposite of b over 2 times a. So then you're going to get -6 divided by -2, which is going to give you 3. So for your axis of symmetry, you get that x is equal to 3. So now we know that that's going to be the x-coordinate of the vertex. So now we want to get the y-coordinate of the vertex. So y is equal to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in 3 wherever I see an x. And now if you have a good calculator, you can plug it right into your calculator. So you get -3 squared plus 6 times 3 plus 4. So then your final answer is going to be 13 when you do that. Remember that your y-intercept is going to come from your c value, which is 4. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at this. I do think you should write the steps down because I think it helps if you get stuck that you have something you can reference back to. So find the vertex. So to find the x-coordinate, remember we used x is equal to opposite of b over 2a. Remember, this is something you did on the previous note sheet. Okay, so for part B then, you're going to plug into the original function and solve to find the y-coordinate of your vertex. Remember, your vertex is always a point, x, y. Then you are going to write it as an ordered pair. First x, then y. So next, what we want to do is how we're going to actually graph it. We're going to make a table. Okay, so you're going to start with the vertex. So the vertex is going to go in the center of your chart, and that's going to make more sense in a second. Then B is going to find the other two values, and you're going to put 2 on the left and 2 on the right side of the x-coordinate. Now that will make more sense once we actually start taking a look at this. So let's take a look, a couple things you need to remember. So that the graph is going to open up when A is positive. So when A is greater than 0 or A is positive, the graph will open up. If A is less than 0 or A is negative, it's going to open down. So that way you can help look to see if you've graphed it correctly because you can tell if the graph is opening up or down. Now let's start graphing, okay? So first thing we want to do is do our opposite of b over 2a. So I'm going to do that up here. X is equal to opposite of b, which is going to be a -6 over 2 times a. So I get -6 divided by -6, and that's going to be equal to 1. So I'm going to put 1 in the center, okay? Now I need to calculate out my y value. So I'm going to do y is equal to -3 times 1 squared plus 6 times 1 plus 4. Now, for this one, I do want you guys to try plugging this in your calculator along with me so you make sure you're doing it right. Okay, so when you plug that into your calculator, pause it and do it with me, you should have gotten 7. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the numbers go larger going this way and go smaller going this way. So I'm going to fill in my x values. This is going to be 2, 3, and this is going to be 0, -1. And those are x values that I chose. Okay, x values that I chose. So now let's go ahead and let's take a look at plugging these in. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug 2 in. So I'm going to take the 1 out, and now I'm going to plug in 2 wherever I see an x. So in my calculator, -3 times 2 squared plus 6 times 2 plus 4. And when you do that, you're going to end up with 4. Again, hopefully you're calculating it along with me so you make sure you're doing it right. Now here's the great thing about parabolas. Since x is equal to 1 is our axis of symmetry, our y values are going to be symmetrical on either side. So the 2 value is going to be the same as the 0 value for y. So I write them both as 4. So now I'm going to take and I'm going to plug in 3. So I'm going to go ahead and put in 3. So I have -3 times 3 squared plus 6 times 3 plus 4. And when I do that, I end up getting a negative 5. So that negative 5 is also going to be true for negative 1. So now we need to plot those. So my vertex is going over 1 and up 7. So I'm going to plot that point, and through that point I'm going to draw a dashed line. That dashed line is going to represent my axis of symmetry. Then I'm going over 0 and up 4. I'm also going over 2 and up 4. And then I'm going right 3 and down 5, and left 1 and down 5. Okay, so when you do all of that, you end up getting a U. Okay, so that's how you know you did your graph right, if you have a nicely formed U. And I want the U to be opening down because my A is negative. Now let's take a look at number 3. Again, we want to calculate out our vertex. So I'm going to do opposite of B over 2 times A. So I end up getting negative 2 divided by 2, which is a negative 1. So I'm going to put negative 1 in the center of my chart. So now I need to take and I need to plug in negative 1 wherever I see an X. So then I end up getting 1 minus 2 plus 1. And then you get 0. You can also type this entire thing into your calculator if you don't want to do it all at once, if you don't want to do it out in little chunks. Either way should work as long as you are careful about your order of operations. So I'm going to get larger going this way, and I'm going to get smaller going this way. So now we need to plug in some values to get our y. So we know that these two are going to be the same values for y, and these two are going to be the same values for y. So I'm going to start, I'm going to take x out, and I'm going to put in 0 instead. So wherever I see an x, I'm putting in a 0. And when you do that, you end up getting 1. So that's the value for 0, and that's also the value for negative 2. Now I'm going to take out my x, and I'm going to plug in a 1 wherever I see my x. So you have 1 squared plus 2 times 1 plus 1, and that's going to give you 4. Again, you should be calculating this along with me to make sure that you can do it by yourself once you get to the homework. So for our vertex, we're going left 1, up 0. So we're going right here. Now through that, we have our axis of symmetry, so I'm going to draw that. Then we're going over 0, up 1. And also left 2, up 1, and plotting that point. Then we're going left 3 and up 4. And then we're going left 1 and up 4. So this guy right here is going to be our beautiful parabola. Again, it should always take a U shape or a frowny face. Okay, it should always be nice and rounded. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 4. So for number 4, we're going to go ahead and make the same chart. So we're going to do x is equal to opposite of b over 2 times a. So that's going to end up giving you 1. So now to get my y, wherever I see a 1, whenever I see an x, I'm going to put a 1. So I'm going to go ahead and draw us a chart here, okay? In the center of the chart, I'm going to put 1, and then I'm going to get smaller going up and larger going down. So when I plug this into my calculator, the parentheses are really, really, really important. So once I have the parentheses there, I end up getting a negative 9. Then I'm going to do the same thing, but instead I'm going to plug in 2. And you could plug in 0 if you want. It doesn't matter as long as you only plug in one number in for each of the x's. So 2 squared minus 2 times 2 minus 8 is going to give me minus 8. So that's my value for 2 and 0. And then I'm going to plug in 3 wherever I see an x. So then I get 3 squared minus 2 times 3 minus 8. And when I do that, I get a negative 5. So let's go ahead and graph this. So we're going over 1 and down a negative 9, which is actually just off of our graph, so I'm just going to estimate that. And then we're going to have a vertical axis of symmetry. Then we're going over 2 down 8, and also over 0 down 8. Then we're going right 3 down 5, and left 1, down 5. So now we can go ahead and graph that quadratic. Again, it takes that nice U shape. Since my A is positive, I do want my graph to be opening up and making a smiley face. Okay. Let's take a look at this last one here. So we have y's are equal to negative 3x squared. So that means that we basically have plus 0x plus c. Okay, or plus 0, sorry. So our C value is 0, our B value is 0. So when we go to do opposite of B over 2A, we're actually going to plug in a 0, and I'm going to use negative 3 for A because it is with the negative term. So then when you do that, you end up getting 0. So now that I know that that is 0, I can go ahead and I can plug that in. Okay, so then I get y is equal to a negative 3 times 0 squared. Okay, so then I get from my vertex that that is going to be 0, 0. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I am going to, excuse me, make my chart. So I have x and then y, and 0, 0 is going to go in the center. It's going to get larger going this way, and it's going to get smaller going this way. So I'm going to start by plugging in 1. So I get y is equal to negative 3 times 1 squared, which is just going to give me negative 3. Now I'm going to plug in 2 where I see my x. And that's going to give me a negative 12. Well, unfortunately, negative 12 is off the graph, so I can only graph 3 of the points. So when I'm graphing, I'm going over 0, up 0, which is this point right here. And then I'm going to do a dashed line through that, even though you can't really see it. Then I'm going over 1, down 3, and left 1, down 3. Now we don't want to cross over to 2 before we hit the end because we know it needs to hit at 12. So notice that I'm not crossing the negative 2 or the 2 line before I get off the graph. So that concludes your note video for today. Go ahead and show me your completed note sheet when you are done. Thank you for listening.